Well, this is Ed Stetzer Live, and this and every Saturday at this time, we have conversations about culture and mission and the church and the gospel and more. And today, right now, like literally as this show is airing on 250 plus outlets across the country, some of you listening to podcasts later on, we are actually, my guest and I are simultaneously at the graduation at Jessup University up here in, it's Rockland. Are we in Rockland?
We're in Rockland, California, up in Northern California. Yep.
Good deal. John Jackson, president of Jessup University, and also, you're president of Multnomah Biblical Seminary as well?
That's correct.
Is that the right terminology?
That's exactly right.
Been a pastor, now serving for 15 years as the president of Jessup, which is it's a well-known school up here in Sacramento area. And we're excited to have you on and talk about the program.
Well, thanks so much, Ed. I've admired you for many, many years. We have good friendship, good relationship. And Jessup University and Multnomah Biblical Seminary, great opportunities to see God work in Northern California. And here today at graduation, like you said, we're through the marvels of modern technology. We're able to do this simultaneously. Yeah, we just clone us.
Yeah, you and I are right now looking out on all these students. And so, you're, Moody Radio is owned by Moody Bible Institute.
Right.
So I don't know if their graduation is the same time. Biola's graduation is next week. But all across the country, students are graduating. Christian colleges, I think, graduate 100,000 graduates each year. And so what are you hoping for the students that you and I are literally looking at right now?
Well, as I think about this, Ed, that's a fantastic question. First and foremost, I want them to be deeply in love with Jesus. So for us, a transformative encounter with Christ is the single most important thing. The older I get, the simpler I try to be. So Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. All these things will be added. So first of all, we pray that they'll have a transformative relationship with Jesus. Second of all, I really want them to be equipped to engage the culture. I have a deep appreciation for solitude, a deep appreciation for spiritual formation practices where people withdraw. But Ed, now more than ever, we need Christians who can engage culture, Christians who can be in the Monday through Saturday warp and woof of life. And so we here at Jessup, as well as every school like Biola and others, are trying to equip students to engage culture in their respective profession and calling. And then maybe thirdly, I really want to see students who can ask the right questions. I have a great professor friend here who says that our generation, baby boomer, our generation won by knowing the right answers. This generation will win, advance, have impact by knowing the right questions.
Fascinating. Okay, fascinating. So one of the things that's sort of different is, you're not a Bible college, though you have a Bible major and you have a seminary. Same with the Biola University. Yes. Though, in our case, Biola used to be an acronym. Now it's just a word, but it used to be Bible Institute of Los Angeles. And what did you used to be?
Well, it used to be San Jose Bible College, and then it was San Jose Christian College, and then it became William Jessup University, but now we just call it Jessup. So by the way, you know what the name of Stanford is?
What?
Leland E. Stanford Junior University.
I didn't know that.
But people just call it Stanford. Yeah. So that's the same with us.
So they go with Jessup.
It's not William Jessup University, it's just Jessup.
Okay. So, but as a university, you're trying to train women and men for the whole of life with all different professions, spheres of society. You want to use a Kuyperian term, theological term of Abraham Kuyper. But this idea of kind of being, we're going to talk about your book, Grace Ambassador, in a little bit, but kind of being a Grace Ambassador in technology or in teaching, so how does that uniquely change what you do, being different from a Bible college or seminary, which you have, but also training people in regular professions for being Grace Ambassadors?
Yeah, so let's say you're in a Bible college or seminary, and I honor both of those as I know you do. My heart is pastoral. People say, Dr. Jackson, you're the president of the school, but you're really a pastor. And I say, absolutely, that's my heartbeat. I want to shepherd people into deeper relationship with Jesus. But when you're in Bible college or seminary, you're equipping people largely who are going to be in vocational involvement in a local church or a ministry or mission. When here at the university, 85, maybe 90% of our students, they're going to go to church, they're going to be plugged into mission and ministry, but their vocation is going to be in the everyday work world. They're going to be doctors and nurses. They're going to be healthcare workers. They're going to be people who are involved in education and business. And in those settings, arts, media, entertainment, those spheres, as you talked about, of society that Kuyper talked about, how do you get to the place where I can be equipped to have a biblical worldview, a culturally redemptive mandate kind of in my soul, and engage every day? So this is probably a little off topic, but I have a vision, Ed, for saying, how do we create everyday disciples who make disciples in the everyday?
I like that.
That's huge. That's a critical need of our day.
Yeah, I love that. And again, this is a very appropriate program. Again, literally Moody Bible Institute, where this is the Moody Radio here. And Mark Jobe is one of the things I love about Mark is he's the president of Moody Bible Institute, but he's also the pastor of a church called New Life. So he's training people for ministry, and and yet simultaneously equipping people every day for everyday lives. I love that theme as you put it. I guess part of what I want to figure out, though, in the midst of all of this, is why should Christian parents consider? I mean, because let's be honest. I think Moody Bible Institute is like functionally non-tuition. I think they have some fees. But out in California, there are cheaper alternatives to Jessup and to Biola University.
That's right.
So why would you encourage for any? And we're in favor of all these different Christian schools. We have friends who lead these Christian schools. So why make that choice?
So great. That's such a great question, Ed, and I appreciate even the way you asked it, because we honor those other Christian schools. We're in competition, but the bottom line is that any student that goes to a Christian college, we celebrate that. Why should you go there? In California, we have community colleges, we have state universities, we have the
community colleges are free.
Are free, yes, free. We have minimal fees, so very free. State universities a little bit more, UC system a little bit more, but the reality is all of them at some level may approach or be substantially less than a Christian college. Why should you go? Let me just make this promise to you as a parent in this day and age. If you're listening as a parent, got a son or daughter who's getting ready to think about it, if you go to a public university, especially in California, but across the country, I promise you, your faith will be systematically attacked. Mm-hmm. The worldview that exists in secular settings, and in fact, I say to people, if you're going to send your student to a public university, please do this for me. Please ensure that they are well grounded in their faith, that they are connected to a campus ministry that's vital and vibrant, and they're plugged into a local church. Do everything you can to ensure that they have companions on the journey. Because the truth is, you're going to be systematically attacked. Now, on the positive side, why should you go to Christian school? Because Biola, for instance, I'm going to keep saying honoring things to Biola, so you keep me on the broadcast. But
and I'm saying honoring things about Moody Bible Institute because this is their program.
There you go. So if a student goes to Biola, they're going to be very, very well prepared for their future vocation. Mm-hmm. I happen to know a number of the different disciplinary areas of Biola, and they're well respected. They do a great job. God's favor is on Biola. I think God's favor is on Jessup. Mm-hmm. And the reason is I say this may be a little side trip, but Mom and Dad, think about this. I think at Jessup, we need to win with the students. We need to win with the families. In our case at Jessup, we need to win with the churches because that's core for us. And then we need to win with the local businesses. You know how we win with the local businesses? Mm-hmm. We prepare excellent students who will be great employees and eventually supervisors and employers in those businesses. Jessup has an amazing, enviable record because you know why employers ultimately hire students? It's not for technical skills. It's for character. Yeah. Character is what is lasting. And Jessup produces students of character who do an amazing job in the workplace.
Love it. We see this, and we have the film school, which is kind of,
amazing.
It's in LA, so you got a film school in LA County. And what's fascinating is I was talking to Tom Helene, who's our dean. He's amazing. He used to be was a vice president of program for AMC Networks, and now he's the lead in the film school. But he says that, I think it's Variety puts us as a top 20 film school in the country, only Christian on the list. But what he says is the people who work in the studios just like that our students show up on time. They haven't been out drinking the night before. And just for the 22-year-old, they're at a different place. And one of the things that I hope that people hear, for schools, and again, but let's not just say Moody Bible Institute and Biola Jessup, but we're for Cedarville. We're for I don't know. I could come up with 5 for Southeastern down in Lakeland and Florida. Is that you do see? You're right. It's not like I'm not particularly alarmist, but on a campus today, you will have your faith systematically. There will be people who intend to do that. Now, what I found, you've found too, is there are students, kids, I don't want to say, they don't know me, we're supposed to call them students, and they'll go off to college, and they're sort of prepared for that.
Right.
But if you're going to go to a state school or a non-Christian private school, you better be prepared for those things.
I wrote a tiny little booklet. I'd be willing to send it to anybody free as a PDF. It's called The Right Choice, Choosing a College and Why It Matters.
That's so good.
And I mentioned a couple things. I talked about your dreams, your desires, and then the details, cost and geography and all that. This is what I said, that when you make that choice to go to a school, you're making a conscious decision. So be prepared, be equipped. Just exactly what you said. Be prepared, be equipped. And if you send them to a public university, you send them to a private university that's not religious.
Yeah.
Those are different choices than if you choose a religious institution, and specifically Christian. And again, I just think you have to be intentional about the worldview and be equipped when you walk in the door. Don't get shocked by the attacks that come because there is a systematic worldview. And I'm not an alarmist, like you said. I'm not an alarmist. I just want to be a realist, however.
That's right. And it is, I think, worth stating that You should just expect it.
Yes.
You should expect it. And it's in a sense, sometimes people think, well, I send my kids to public high school, which again, people make choices. We know the Christians and we love Christians who send their kids to public high schools or private or whatever. But it's not the same.
Right.
It's not the same. You will study religion at a secular school as a course, and the intent is to systematically dismantle what you believe.
And dads and moms, let me just go after you with this in a good way. Take this friend. I'm your friend. My name is John. I'm your friend. Mm-hmm. So we're literalist in the Bible, except when it comes to Ephesians 6. Ephesians 6 tells us that our battle is not flesh and blood, but it's principalities and powers and rulers in high places. We are in a spiritual battle. And again, I don't mean to be alarmist. I'm for redeeming culture, not attacking culture. But on the other hand, there is going to be a battle that takes place when you step into a spiritually challenging atmosphere.
Indeed. And the book you wrote most recently is Grace Ambassador.
Yes.
Tell us how Grace Ambassador helps us to think about some of those things.
Well, and that is essentially that your address, like you're in LA in film school, your address is not an accident, it's an assignment. God places every single one of us, whether it's an institution or a person, exactly where he wants us. And when he places us there in the workplace, you're not off duty as a follower of Jesus in that workplace. You're actually on assignment. So I use the word ambassador because it comes out of 2 Corinthians 5, that we're ambassadors of reconciliation. I think that's the great heart of God. The heart of God is to see people reconciled to himself. That passage, it actually says we should beg, plead people to come back to God. That's the heart. When you're an ambassador, you bring his grace and his kindness.
Love it. And we've had you on the program to talk about this, the Grace Ambassador, when it first came out. And I guess you're a friend of the show now. Yeah. And we'll link to it and we'll link to your bio as well. And again, let me be clear too, John's written several books. He's written The Prevailing Church. He's written High Impact Church Planning. That's how I first, back in the day.
Good.
And that's a little before the radio show existed and more. So again, let me remind you that we are pre-recorded today, and I didn't introduce myself. I'm Ed Stetzer, the Dean of the Talbot School of Theology, Biola University, and your host this and every Saturday. John Jackson, of course, is our guest. He's the president of Jessup University. Before that, he was the co-founder of Thriving Churches International, senior leader of Bayside Church in Granite Bay, founding pastor of Life Point Church in Nevada, and for that, which was fascinating to me, executive minister of American Baptist Churches of the Pacific Southwest, which became Transformation Ministries, which is now
Aspire Network. Yes.
Aspire. And I'm keynoting their meeting next year.
I love that.
So it's a fascinating journey as well. And now, of course, you're here at Jessup University, which is Key Christian University in the we say Northern California.
That's correct.
Northern California.
NorCal, yep.
And you're Sacramento, but the San Jose connection, we want to get back to that as well. Let me remind you, we are pre-recording. And so stay with us. We're going to continue our conversation with John Jackson, but we won't be able to take your calls. But remember, all the links are over at edstetzerlive.com. Okay, we're back. We've got John Jackson, president of Jessup University. You know, I do want to say William Jessup. How recently did you just become Jessup?
Just really the last 2 years. We've been shortening the name and just saying Jessup.
Okay. Are you going to keep shortening? Soon going to be Jess University?
Well, here's what we say. This is the thing. Biola can't say this.
Yeah.
Jesus is in our name.
Wow.
See,
look at that.
You have bio in your name. You have other things. You have LA in your name, but you do not have Jesus in your name.
I feel like I've been Jesus juked right
there.
There
we go, dude.
I've been like laid down the law.
Come on.
Okay, so we're actually, John and I are actually literally right now at the graduation. I'm doing the commencement, and I'm going to start my commencement talk. We're pre-recording this, so John hasn't seen this yet. I'm going to probably ask, how many of you have been to a graduation before? And people all raise their hand. I said, how many of you remember the graduation speaker? And then no one will raise their hand. And I'm saying, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make sure that we focus on the students and the parents. And
So it tells me, and I knew this intuitively, my friend, you are a smart man. God bless you. Thank you for coming to speak at graduation. Nobody's there for you.
It's so true. It's so true. And I've been at graduations where somebody was very impressed with his or her own speaking ability. Yep. And like nobody's listening. They're waiting to see their kid.
I want to see my son or daughter walk across the stage and have their name announced. That's the moment.
No, I mean, I would say like if you're like a president or somebody like I'm none of those things. You know, I'm a motivational speaker living in a van by Mother River.
There you go.
So I don't know. I won't do any of those things. Okay, so that's why we can't take your calls. We're pre-recorded. But I wanted to have a conversation, a multifaceted conversation with John because he's got a multifaceted background. But you know, we're in California, which people across the country love to say bad things about California. But California is actually back growing again. People are coming back to the state. kind of the COVID was a tough time.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean, I was just yesterday in San Francisco speaking at Transforming the Bay with Christ, their meeting. And God's doing great things.
Oh, amen.
He's on the move in San Francisco, but it's got some challenges for sure. The city has significant challenges. But we do see California is now the 4th largest economy in the whole world.
That's right.
So why does it matter that Christians, now again, people listening, we got faithful listeners in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We got faithful listeners in Alabama. Why does it matter that Christians are here and present in California? And then I'm going to ask you how the rest of the country should be praying for Christians in California.
Yeah. Well, let me say, first of all, theologically, God is sovereign, and who am I to criticize another man's servant? So I have family members who've moved to other parts of the country, specifically to Tennessee. And every time I visit them, I think, oh my goodness, this is amazing, lovely, wonderful.
I lived there for a decade. It's nice.
It's glorious. Having said that, God places his people where he places them. And those people who are in California who feel called to California, it matters. We're 18 miles right now on this campus of Jessup University. We're 18 miles from the state capital of California, which is now the 4th ranked economy in the world. Your address is not an accident. It's an assignment. Just like you significantly at Biola in LA, Moody's in the Chicagoland area, the reality is God places us. So in California, we have the opportunity to impact the world. This is a global state. So we have people, literally refugees in the Sacramento region, who come from Afghanistan, who come from Ukraine. 2 huge hotspots in the world in recent years. And guess what? Thousands and thousands of refugees have come here, and we have an opportunity to impact them and therefore to impact a spillover of culture. So I think it's critical here, the Bay Area, center of innovation, technology, and venture capital for the world.
I was like, I'm not super familiar with Bay Area, but then before. But I got this Sprinter van. I actually slept in the van on the way.
You're a crazy man.
First time. I'm trying to get the word out about this Talbot.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I get up there and I get Gary Gadini.
I love Gary. Well,
and we drive around San Francisco in the Sprinter van, and he's talking about this place and that place. Right. And they'll all be at biola.edu/lead the way. I'll link to it. All these videos I'm doing, including with Pat Gelsinger, of course, from
love Pat.
Now with Glue, formerly the Intel CEO. And I got to tell you, I was just... you don't realize how, because if you just watch cable news, you just think San Francisco is abandoned.
Yes.
And there's got all those challenges, but it's still the center of the world in so many ways
it's
for tech.
So if you are, now San Francisco as a city I won't say it's an enclave, but it's got its own ecosystem. Yeah. You go to San Jose, which is
San Jose,
its own Palo Alto is different even than San Jose. And oh my goodness, when you're in Palo Alto and you're on the Stanford campus, or you go by Intel or some of the other tech leadership, you're at Apple and Facebook.
Yeah.
Wow, these folks are literally shaping the world.
And you just call it? Is that just Bay Area? Is that what they call it?
Most of us just call it Bay Area or Silicon Valley.
Silicon
Valley is the key name for that, and because of the silicon chips.
Yeah, right.
So it's California is an opportunity to influence the world. So you think about the Great Commission. The Great Commission says to make disciples of all nations. Well, in the Silicon Valley and in Sacramento and in California, you want to make disciples of all nations. You actually have the opportunity to touch all nations in California. It's an unbelievable mission field assignment. It's glorious and challenging.
Yeah, and Northern California is, again, I'm in Southern California.
Yep.
Southern California it's just very different. I don't know, I would say it's the Bible Belt of California for sure.
Yes. Yep.
And this is much more secular. We did the American Bible Society, we did, when I was speaking there yesterday, they have the State of the Bible research, and the guy in charge of the research is a friend of mine, and he's going to join me on the Lead the Way tour. David Kinnaman from Barna is. Anyway, So he then said, I think I could do a study of the Bay Area. So we actually released data yesterday, just yesterday, exclusively to the Bay, to Transforming the Bay with Christ, and actually showed that, if you're like, I'm a Gen Xer, you're a boomer, if you're like our age,
yes,
you're kind of like what you expect in San Francisco, kind of over religion, maybe into something new agey, whatever. Sure. But the young adults, there's a higher interest in the Bible, higher interest in spiritual things. Something's going on.
Well, let me tell you a couple of things. First of all, I would say Central Valley, and particularly as you go down to Bakersfield, that's a unique...
Okay, I don't know what Central Valley is.
Central Valley, to me, would be Bakersfield up to about, I would say Bakersfield to Sacramento is actually Central Valley. Okay. Whereas the Bay Area itself is more like, I would say Fairfield to San Francisco, the Napa area would be extended part of Bay Area. Let me say this to you in a way that I think will encourage you. I think that we're seeing a revival of faith. You've seen these stats, them way better than I. We're seeing a return to orthodoxy.
Yeah.
People who are young, especially young males, are saying, I think this is what they're saying. I want authenticity. I want roots. I want historicity. I want a sense of content to my faith.
Right.
And we're seeing, I think, a resurgence.
I don't think
it's
you're seeing. I will tell you that the article I wrote in USA Today on Easter Sunday, I'll link it in the show notes, actually shows, and I didn't pick the headline, but they led with Gen Z men, because it really is a sense that, and I think there's a crisis of young men in our country.
I think that's correct.
And not all of them are turning to Jesus. Some of them are turning to Andrew Tate, which I think is terrible.
Yep.
But some of them are turning to Jesus because they found everything else they're pursuing. The world's not with them, and now they're finding Jesus.
Yes, I celebrate that. So I think, Ed, when you think about a geographic assignment, I used to think that I'm sorry to admit this, but if you were, this is a boy growing up in a Baptist church with a dad who was a pastor who was wonderful, but I used to think if you really love Jesus and you surrender your life to him, he's going to send you to some place on the planet that you hate. Because that's what it means. You're consecrated, you'll go wherever he tells you to go, where, On the other hand, I've come to believe over time that if you consecrate yourself to the Lord, Psalm 37:4, delight yourself in the Lord, will give you the desires of your heart, that he actually places you in settings where you can soar. Now, to this day, I don't understand why Paul was sent to the Gentiles instead of the Jews. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But I know there's a reason Ed Stetzer's in SoCal. I grew up in SoCal.
Yeah.
You're perfect for SoCal. You're going to have a global impact from that platform.
Well, it's a fascinating place, and again, contrary to what you might have seen, I love living in California, and I'm sharing the gospel with people, and there are vibrant churches all around too.
That's a shocking thing. People think of Southern California, and all we have is the Hollywood images on our mind. But then you go look at the churches. You look at some of the churches that I know that you're affiliated with, and some of the churches around that area. Wow, great ministry. I also think of this area up here. Within 20 miles of me on this campus, there are probably several hundred churches. And there are probably 15 or 20 that are making outsized impact in amazing Great Commission fashion. Just great churches, great ministries, and I'm so happy to partner with them.
Love it. And you actually make a point, Jessup. One of the things is, even in your mission statement, you start with the church. So talk to us a little about university and churches. We'll kind of move away from the California discussion, though I think it's helpful for people in the rest of the country. But talk to us about how universities and churches can and should partner.
So you know that
Christian ones.
Yes, of course. So you know that I, at least have some love for. I'm not a professional, but I have love for history. And the academy started out of the church.
That's right.
The greatest scientists, the greatest artists, the greatest ethicists, the greatest medical practitioners all came out of the church. They're all people of faith. So when we got to the Enlightenment, when we got to post-Reformation eras and a variety of other things, we saw the academy continue its formation. Sadly, in the 1920s, I think we saw this big, huge split, and we saw modernity, it was called modernity, started taking hold, and a lot of people rejected that, and we went to fundamentalism, and that's a historical overview. Today.
That was the quickest but accurate historical overview, yes.
So today, there's this terrible separation I think people have in their mind, sacred and secular.
Right.
Oh, when I go get my university education, when I go do my profession, that's secular, and then sacred was when I go to church on Sundays and when I go to home group or whatever. And I'm telling you, actually, when you send your child or you come to university at a Christ-centered school, you're being discipled. I don't think discipleship, and I love the Navigators. Love, was trained by the Navigators.
2-7.
There we go. Come on.
Yeah.
Memorized the 100 topical memory system that was maybe predated you even. 113 Bible verses when I was 14 years old. So all that to say, at the same time, discipleship is in all areas of life. And so the university and the church, I say that we're a child of the church. Mm-hmm. Now, we're an adult child. Right. And I think you probably have a few adult children who have learned how to talk to dad talk to mom.
They do.
Oh, my goodness.
They have their own ideas.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know when that happened, but it happened for me, too. I got several all my kids are adult kids now, and they talk to dad in ways that I don't recall them speaking as young children. So Jessup and every other Christ-centered school, I think, should be a child of the church, means we have a respectful, honoring, loving relationship with the church, and we are deeply and intentionally dependent upon the church.
Love it. We are right now on the campus of Jessup University, and I love just walking up. I mean, you have a beautiful campus, and
thank you.
And all that's going on here. And I love just seeing the intentional nature of, we want to have a Christ-centered education here that does make such a difference. Briefly, I want to go to the next segment. I want to talk about technology.
Okay.
But take us a minute about, because Jessup's obviously leaning into this, Biola's leaning into this, particularly like technology and AI. Yeah. Why should Christians be involved in this space?
Yeah. Christians can make an intentional choice to avoid all technology and innovation and just say it's more spiritual to stay on the sidelines. Mm-hmm. Or you can make the decision, hey, this is what God's doing in our world. He's allowing it to happen. Let's get involved and let's shape the technology. So I've been a huge proponent of when things like AI come out, I'm not enamored by them. I don't want to be mastered by them, but I want Christians at the forefront. Why? did Christians not invent, and I'm not saying anything about Mark Zuckerberg, why did Christians not invent Facebook? Why didn't Christians invent Microsoft and Google? Christians should be at the forefront of technological innovation, and we should do so for the glory of God. So Jessup, we're doing a thing called Jessup Plus AI. We are leaning into it, fully integrated. We have ethical, moral, theological boundaries that we're paying attention to. Alfred Nobel and the Nobel Prize was established because somebody wrote his premature obituary, and it cited him as the inventor of dynamite and the destructive influence of his life.
Right.
He therefore decided to have another legacy. What's the legacy of Christ-centered universities? I hope it's the positive impact of technology on the planet, not the destructive impact.
And I want to talk more about that. I want to lean into the technology question in our next segment as well. Remember, we're pre-recorded, so we can't take your calls today, but I'm here with John Jackson. He's the president of Jessup University. We are up in Northern California, broadcasting live from here. And John and I are actually, when you're listening to this, we're actually about to, commencement is, I'm telling the students to commence, to go forth.
Yes.
And so that's what I'm doing. And then you're going to pronounce upon them their degrees. And so it's going to be a great day. So pray for us, pray for the students at Jessup. We're going to continue our conversation with John Jackson here from Jessup University in just a minute. Okay, we're back. John Jackson's our guest. We're at Jessup University. So I guess partly a little bit of history. You were San Jose Bible College. San Jose is the center of so much technology-wise. But you come out here, and then the chairman of your board for a while is Pat Gelsinger. I had the dinner with the Gelsingers last night. He was the head of Intel, famous tech leader.
Yep.
Now just stepped into an expanded role at Glue, which is technology in the faith space. And so you've really had this edge, this technological edge. So before AI, what did that look like? Then I want to talk about what it looks like after AI.
Well, let me be honest, and I love my forebearers. I love the ancestors and the history of San Jose Bible College, San Jose Christian College. But when they moved here in 2004, and when I got here in 2011, no math, no science, no arts except for music, no graduate programs, and no online.
Which is not an uncommon thing for smaller Christian colleges.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And so I said, in what sense is your name Jessup University? They said, well, our name is aspirational.
Okay, fair.
So what I would say is we practice the sacred secular divide. We did have a few degrees in education, degree in business, none of that, but we were not into technology. Today,
in Northern California.
It's insane.
Sure. Yeah.
So anyway, when I came here, and again, I'm a pastor by trade and training. I led a large denominational agency, so I'm a church guy. So I tell people I love Jesus, family, and church. I don't actually love higher ed. I believe in higher ed. But I believe higher ed is a subset of the church.
Okay.
In my vision of the church, big C church, university, Christ-centered university is a subset. So here's where we've gone with technology. Jessup today, 2025, when we're recording this, Jessup has a use of technology where we're trying to be cutting edge. Now, sometimes leading edge and cutting edge is the bleeding edge, so you make mistakes. So, on the other hand, we've tried to integrate technology into a lot of what we do, and we've said to our Bay Area friends, help us, please leverage your gifts. We look, for instance, where Pat has gone from Intel to Glue, and I know that transition was interesting and crazy and all that. On the other hand, I said to Pat and to Linda, who I dearly love, they're both wonderful people.
We're talking about the Gelsingers.
Pat and Linda Gelsinger, sorry, Pat was the first CTO of Intel, was trained by Gordon Moore.
Chief Technology Officer.
Chief Technology
You
Officer.
talk like a Northern California person.
I apologize. And so
he actually, if you had computers, and you remember the 286, the 386, he was the guy who created the 486.
Yes. Now, what you haven't told your audience is that while this is being recorded, where we're recording on campus is actually in a place called Crawford Commons. John Crawford is a Intel Hall of Fame chip designer.
Oh, wow.
Pat Gelsinger led John Crawford to faith in Jesus.
I didn't know that.
Oh my goodness! So such
Amazing.
A legacy of yours. So I praise
Sure.
God for the opportunity to be with the Crawfords and the Gelsingers.
Yeah.
All that to be said, here's what Jessup is doing today. In our university campus here in Rockland, we are doing AI integration, meaning we're integrating AI into a lot of our technology, a lot of our course offerings.
Isn't that cheating?
It is if there's no original thought from the students.
Good.
But in the same way, does that mean I can never use Google to look up something?
Right.
I can never use anything on the internet? Isn't that cheating?
Because I'm telling you right now, like people are unsure.
Yeah.
And yet what happens is the students are using AI, but you're not necessarily, and again, you're doing it, we're doing it, but for a lot of people, they have to do it outside of the system. But if you can bring it into the system and teach them to use it ethically,
And to be honest, in our university setting, that's the framework we're trying to inculcate is to get our professors and our staff members to say, don't avoid AI. Teach students how to responsibly use AI so that it's integrated into their experience. But again, it's the servant, not the master.
Right.
It's not flying the plane.
Yeah.
It's just giving us amazing amounts of co-pilot energy and effort.
For a lot of people listening, AI is very scary to them.
Yeah.
But they don't realize that every day they're interacting with AI
Every
already.
day. I promise you never use your phone without using AI, whether you know it or not.
Right.
Now, let me say something about Jessup Plus AI that's within a division we call Jessup Global. That's a more immersive experience.
Oh, interesting. Okay, tell me about
So
that.
here's what we're doing with Jessup Plus AI. You're not only having AI assistance tools to help you study, but AI is fully immersive in that atmosphere. You're being registered by AI.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
You're being tutored, if you want, 24 hours a day. Anytime you have a question about your subject, it will never get tired. I've told many a student over the course of my life, many a colleague over the course of my life, hey, I'm sorry, about 10 o'clock my wind goes down and I'm about ready to go to sleep. AI doesn't tell you that. So if you're a student and you're 8, 9, 10, 12, 2 o'clock in the morning, you're like, hey, I need to understand the history of this. Dr. Jackson just gave us an overview of the development of modernity, rationalism, enlightenment. Can you give me that overview? Boom. It's there within 60 seconds. And they can keep driving you deeper. Now, it's not going to write a paper for you.
Right.
It's not going to write a paper for you that's not going to be caught by us.
Right. No, it could write a paper.
It could write a paper
but just so you know, professors can tell.
Absolutely right.
We have tools to tell.
We have ways to
I've
tell.
had chats with students.
Yes, that's good. And by the way, I've had professors who said to me, John, I got 3 papers from the student before they got exposed to AI, and then they got exposed to AI, and the next 3 papers were, garbage.
Yeah.
They were just nothing but mechanical thing. So AI cannot do a paper for you that won't be caught.
That's right.
What they can do is help you think better, help refine your thinking. It can be all kinds of structure there. But in addition to this, we do your degree plan in AI.
In AI.
Yeah. So what we're finding is,
fascinating.
now we're early.
Yeah.
We're early
I
stage.
would say so.
But in our early stage, we're finding so far great success, and we believe it holds great promise for the future. So if you watch Jessup over the next year, I'll either be able to come back to you and say, Ed, we succeeded. It was amazing. Or oh my goodness, we drove off the cliff.
Yeah, I think part of the thing, like even when you say that, people think of like when they call up their credit card company and they have to say operator, because they won't understand.
Yeah.
So how does that work with it registering them?
So let me just say this to you. I have the same frustration. I don't like it when I call a company and I get some mechanical voice and they just have to keep breaking in the script. So I like to talk to a live human being. But then if that live human being will connect me to some other department and help me find the answer, I love that. When I try to shop on Amazon, let's use a favorite target of people. When I try to shop on Amazon, I can't get a live person.
Right, sure.
However, Amazon has such sophisticated what's called chatbots that when I talk to those chatbots, I can actually get the answer I want 95, 98% of the time.
Agreed.
That's what happens for us at Jessup.
Yeah.
So it's called agentified AI.
Gentified?
Or agentic.
Oh, okay. Okay,
That's
gotcha.
agentic AI or agentified.
Right.
We've taken AI and we've put an agent in there. That agent is essentially a tool that helps the technology of AI assist the student on a specific task. So we'll have agentified AI or agentic AI for registration. They know all the courses we offer. They know the person's information.
Better than a person with live person's memory.
Live person.
Like you say, I want to do a course. I need 2 electives and so. And we have advisors who work for us at Biola.
Oh my goodness.
But AI can pull it up and remember it all.
And what we're doing with those AI agents is they're getting trained better and better and better. And what people won't know about AI is it's all based on what's called LLMs, large language models. Now, I'm not a technologist. I just know
the fact
enough.
that you know what an LLM is
I just know enough to make sure I know what I'm talking about. LLMs determine everything. What's the language model? So we fed in all of Jessup's catalog. We fed in all of Jessup's policies and the process. And now the more registrations that the AI agents do in what we call Jessup Global or Jessup Plus AI, the better they're getting.
That's good.
The better they're getting.
Good. And a lot of churches probably are. The churches are going to get there.
They are.
But sometimes, like even, part of what Pat Gelsinger's new role at Glue is going to be is to help so that you could, like one thing, when I talk about AI, I talk about it like a superpower. Now, again, got to be under control. With great power comes a great responsibility.
That's right.
And yet, I could see, type in, what do we believe? But the part of the challenge is those large language models right now are dominated by large language models that kind of feeding in just everything. And a lot of it's just false from the Christian worldview. So like I love that Pat's going to be helping to build something that actually engages with us in a Christian space.
So I happen to know some of the key leaders at Glue. And one of the great hopes I have is that people like Glue will work with somebody like you. They'll work with somebody like me. They'll work with other people way smarter than you or me who will help establish large language models that are unequivocally orthodox, unequivocally Christ-centered, historically accurate, those kind of things to shape the reality that, again, garbage in, garbage out was an old phrase from many years ago. And the AI is the same basic principle. If you put bad information, bad worldview, bad theology, that's what AI is going to spit out, because AI can't think.
Yeah.
AI doesn't have a soul. Now, I know people are worried that we're going to have robots that take over the planet.
Well, I'm a little worried that we're going to have robots that take over the planet. I don't know if they'll have souls, but I was just showing Donna this morning this video of they were kind of getting this robot going, and it kind of lost control and started swinging at everybody. I do think there are people who talk about the existential threat of AI. But part of my answer is, we're going to go into AI whether or not we like it or not. I would like Christian voices and minds in that space.
Do you want bad people developing AI or good people developing AI? Think about driverless cars, and I know very little about this technology. Do driverless cars make mistakes? 100%. Do driver cars, do staffed or manned cars make mistakes? 100%. So let's recognize that driverless cars make mistakes. We got to get that technology better and better and better. So if we're going to use driverless cars, we want the technology to be great. And we want it to be designed by good people.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing for me. I think Christians tend to be late to technology often. And then they get really big into it, like radio. And then Christians are like huge in radio and internet. Then Christians are huge in internet. And some call it Web 3.0. I think Christians need to be engaged and involved in this space. What would your encouragement to be to regular Christians listening? Because, some of them would drive a truck, some would be working at a bank. Yeah. But what would your encouragement for technology?
Yeah. It used to be said all the time that I was going to go do something online. Mm-hmm. Now almost all of our world is digital. AI is not evil. AI is a digital platform, a digital tool. Engage with AI carefully and responsibly, learn it, and use it for the glory of God.
Fascinating. Okay, we're going to get our conversation. We got one more segment with John Jackson. We're live on the campus of Jessup University for graduation. You and I are going to be in our big robes tomorrow. Going to be very fancy.
Funny hats,
Going to be funny hats as well. Going to be doing that as well. I never know quite how to turn them. I had to put a little sticker on the back of mine so I can remember. But it's a fun time. And so be praying for our students all across America. Students are graduating, colleges, high schools, everything else. It's a fun time. But pray for those students. We'll be praying for the students at Jessup. So remember, we're pre-recorded today because John and I are at graduation literally as you're listening to this. But we are going to continue our conversation with John Jackson from Jessup. Say that 5 times fast in just a moment. Okay, we're back. John Jackson from Jessup University, saying it so I don't transpose the names. We're glad to continue our conversation. One of the things that we've talked about is, part of the challenges is that we see young men and young women produce some pretty remarkable things in the past. And still today, don't misunderstand. I think you think that, and I think that. But one of the things that a lot of people look at, they look at the university experience, and anthropologists talk about a prolonged adolescence phase. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, I think he was married at 18, working what he was going to do the rest of his life at 18. And yet today, you still might be 24 years old trying to figure out your life. What's going on with that?
Yeah. So let me first of all say, just like you, I want to give great deference to the young men and women in our culture who are dreaming God-sized dreams, who are going after huge things in their life. And I just think that God is using young men and women in amazing ways. I talked to a young lady the other day who feels a call of God in her life to be a missionary in Indonesia, and she's 21 years old, and this is the call of God. But having said that, like the anthropologists say, we're in a period where we have normed what I would describe as extended adolescence. I had a young man say to me, or older man say to me, that his prayer for younger men today was that they would get to age 29. Without destructive patterns in their life. Because what happens often is what would have taken place 18 to 25 in an earlier generation is now taking place at 30 to 35.
Right.
People are delaying first marriage. People are delaying having children. We have this whole population issue that we're grappling with in North America.
It's a real thing.
Kind of modeling like Europe did 50 years ago. So I think what's happened is we've lived in a world with such disruptive change, with chaos. We've changed fundamental patterns that have existed for thousands of years, and that disruptive innovation, that disruptive social construct changes has caused people to have confusion. I talk to a lot of young men and young women on our campus here at Jessup, and I'm sure it's at Christian and public schools around the country, who are just confused. I'm 22, 23. I don't know what I want to do with my life. And to a certain extent, people have always questioned that, but they had an entree place. At 18, at 20, they could do a variety of things. I got married at 18.
Got married at 18?
Yeah,
wow.
To the crazy,
Okay.
just like your grandfather, great-grandfather. I got married at 18. I have no regrets about getting married at 18. I regret things I did in my first 5 years of marriage.
Okay, interesting.
Like in other words, I was super mature in some areas, but if you were to talk to my wife, she would say, yeah, but he wasn't so mature in other areas, and that's absolutely true.
I got married at 20, so I can relate, and don't tell my daughters I got married at 20, but keep going.
That's exactly right. Like you and I look today at our kids and go like, oh, you couldn't get married at 18, 20, 22, and yet that was commonplace in our generation.
And actually, I think for Christians, it's not uncommon to have young marriage. I'm not against young marriage, just as you're prepared, but part of the challenge is, how do you have young marriage when you're still trying to figure out, you've got this extended adolescence? My grandfather at 18 knew who he was and probably, might have gone off to war and come back.
And I'll tell you what, the options were fewer at your grandfather's age.
Yeah.
The options for what he would do for work, the options for what kind of direction he could have, the options for women. Oh, my goodness.
And is that part of why you think extended, because there's so many things you can explore?
I think it's like this. I've been told this. I had a friend who was in the grocery business. If you have 15 cereals, that's good. If you have 200 cereal boxes, that's bad. There's an oversaturation, a paralysis of analysis, if you will, where you go in and you see all these options, go like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I think that's what's happening for a lot of young men and young women. There's so many options, and there's so much confusion about what's right, what produces. I can't tell you the number of men and women I talk to who say, I don't want any relationships, anything serious. I got to figure out my life, and that won't be until I'm 30 to 35.
Wow.
So you think about life, even if we lived longer, let's say we lived till 90 as an average. If I don't get married till I'm 30, when do I have kids?
Right, sure.
And then if I have kids at 35, biologically, even though we live till we're 90, the biological clock is ticking pretty loudly.
Real thing.
It's a real thing. And so now I only have, if I have a child, if I get married, if I have a child, I have one child. Maybe I have two. That's the reality. But I think it's the options, it's the confusion of social constructs. And I hate to sound an old record, but I really think the destruction of the family has had a massive generational impact. And I'm not talking about Ozzie and Harriet 1950s, but dad, mom, and kids is the normative pattern that's existed for thousands of years for a reason.
Yeah, so I know that when, my daughters are in their 20s now, early 20s or mid-20s. And I remember the surprise. We come from broken homes. Don and I both do. Lots of drama and challenges there. And so we kind of like, when we're married, we're in it through thick and thin. What are we, 38 years married?
Congratulations. That's awesome.
You've been longer than us.
Yes.
But the part of the thing is, our kids would come over, bring their friends over, and I think we were the only parents in the friend group that were still married.
Right.
And so the overwhelming prevalence. So I can sort of imagine that might cause some people say, well, maybe I shouldn't get married.
And again, this will seem like I'm being male focused. I'm not. I talk to young women and young men on the campus who don't know their father and don't know their grandfather. Yeah. They've had no significant male influence that comes from one or two generations back. Well, I don't care who you are. Any sociologist studying that would say that's not good. Yeah. That's not good to have positive, consistent male influence, or by the way, positive, consistent female influence.
We want both. But we would all agree that there's I don't know your demographics, but even at universities, there's far more women than men studying in most universities because there's a crisis of young men in our culture as well.
In our side, it's about 2/3, 1/3 at Jessup these days. It's been trending up. We're working very hard to bring more and more young men. I have some friends in Christian colleges who have football teams for one reason. More males on campus.
How fascinating.
Isn't it amazing?
Well, you do see this. I've taught at Wheaton and I've taught at Biola, and you do see the reality. But part of the challenge is how do we then, if there's this prolonged adolescence, and again, because you and I are at a university, but almost everyone listening is at a church, how can the church help? Let's just start with young men. How can the church help young men through this period? Because my impression is that young men seem to even be in a longer adolescence than young women.
I think that's exactly right. I hate to say it, but even on my campus, it's 7 to 1. There's 7 mature women for every 1 mature man. It's just my personal observation.
I agree. So what can the church do?
If you're in a local church, this is what I want you to do. I want you to be very intentional about men in that church developing on-ramps to have relationships with young men. They may have a father in the home, but often those young men do not have a father in the home. They don't have a male figure in the home. Develop contexts where they can have relationships with younger men. Invite younger men into opportunities to do stuff with men. You'd be shocked how many young men will come out if you had a gardening day at church where they could learn landscaping. If you had a construction day.
Don't call it a gardening day. Call it a
construction day, landscaping day. I shouldn't have used gardening. So landscaping day, construction day. Come learn PVC. Come learn electrical. Come learn plumbing. That kind of thing. You teach that kind of thing. You teach technical skills. Invite kids to your young men.
Yeah.
Develop intentional on-ramps where older men, it doesn't have to be just old guys like me, 60. Could be guys who are 30, 40, 50 being involved with guys who are 10, 15, 20, 25. They are desperate for positive male influence.
Yeah, for me, I broke it home, and it was a guy named Steve, an insurance salesman named Steve, who mentored me and just helped change my life. We only got a couple minutes left. Yep. So, in general, look at the next generation. Hopeful, concerned, mix. What do you think?
Well, I'm by nature somebody who's hopeful and walk on the sunny side of the street. I have a very strong gear towards the future. So I want to give you a verse that I've been carrying around for 2 years.
Come on.
Romans 15:13. May the God of hope fill you with peace and joy as you trust in him, so that you overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. God of hope, peace and joy as you trust in him. Overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. So think about all the components of those verses. I'm very hopeful for the next generation because we desperately want peace and joy. We desperately want hope. And the only place that is found is in right relationship with God through Jesus Christ. And I think if we move students to that place, they're going to have an encounter with him and they're going to find their future. And I want to support those students along the way.
Fascinating. John Jackson Jessup University, thanks for joining us for the program. We appreciate it. Let me also thank our team, Merle St. James, our engineer, Karen Hendren, our producer, and again, Moody Radio is a ministry of Moody Bible Institute and gives us the opportunity to partner together with you and share these ongoing conversations as well. Go to edstetzerlive.com. You can find links to John's books, including Grace Ambassador's most recent book, but he's got a whole array of books. And so go to edstetzerlive.com. You can click there, find more about him, Jessup University, his books and his writing, and more. Let me remind you that you can also listen to this program via podcast. Just go to Moody Radio's link or edstetzerlive.com, and you'll be able to find the links there to subscribe. Thanks for listening to Ed Stetzer Live.
Love what you're hearing? Get more with the Moody Radio app. Stream live local radio, enjoy music channels from contemporary worship to urban praise, and discover all 40 of our on-demand podcasts with personalized notifications. All your favorite Moody Radio content in one place. Download today.